Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Drive. Now you may have noticed that I'm not actually driving today. That happens to be because the little man that you might see down there was sick. So I had to run by and pick him up from daycare prior to recording the video for today. So that kind of brings me to what our topic is going to be today. And of course, that's going to be the things that you do for your loved ones, especially your children. I think it's a extremely appropriate topic for today, especially in light of some of the news that has been floating around out there about the college admission scandal. And it kind of begs the question of what would you do for your children and what would you not do for your children? Brad, Dan, good to see you. Roberto Clemente. Roberto Moreno is also watching. Good to see you, Roberto. And again, the topic we're going to be talking about today is what you would do for your family. So I want to talk about some of the extremes, some of the things you've done already, some of the things you would do for your family in light of, again, the college cheating scandal and some of the other things that have been going around about children and what we do as parents for our children and taking care of our children. One of the other reasons that I am bringing this up, Brad says sing creep around. Yeah, I will at the end. But one of the other reasons why I wanted to bring up a single topic for today is because I've been looking at some of the feedback that we got for last week while we're trying to figure out what our format's going to be, and while we try to figure out what our major topics are going to be, and of course while we are prepping, since this whole thing is in prep, to launch a very small YouTube show that kind of talks about the issues of the day. We'll aggregate a little bit of the news that's out there, talk about a few of those topics, and then stick to one single topic. So today's topic is family. Hi Marcia, how are you? Always good to see you, Marcia Mann there. Marcia, it's really appropriate that Marcia said hello right there, and that we're talking about families, because Marcia Mann happened to be a person that I would consider an extended part of my family. And I don't mean specifically right now, because of course, you know, as people drift across this great country, you might not get to talk as much as you want, or you might not get to see them as much as you want, but you remember some of those things that you learned from those important people during your childhood. Marcia actually did a lot for me. You know, it was one of my first experiences of hanging out with another family and seeing how another family interacts with each other. They have a relatively large family, and it was nice seeing that dynamic and that bond that they brought. And it was nice to see a difference between what I was seeing at home and their family night. And there's no greater or no worse. It was just different. You got to see a little bit of what other cultures or other families might do for their family members. So, in light of the recent college scandal, it brought a lot of things up and out to light that a lot of people have been talking about for a lot of years. A lot of people who have gone through the college experience a few times, or people who are just going through their initial college experience, have talked about some of the hurdles that they have been placed in their way as they're trying to go through the admissions process. Now, a lot of the times, most of those hurdles would be around making sure that you meet the entrance exams and making sure that you have got enough volunteer hours, and generally meeting those little criteria to get into those top tier schools, or simply making sure that you meet the criteria to get into your junior school so you can transfer over to that top school. And it's enough with the stress about the grades, and of course the pressure, and making sure that you're in the right volunteer organizations, or making sure you're on the right team, and making sure that you're balancing between a scholar and athlete. these things can be daunting for a person going through it, and it can be even more daunting for the parents who may be supporting that education or maybe putting, thanks Marsha, I feel the same way about you too. Or those family members who may be footing the bill for the education and want to make sure that they're getting exactly what they're putting their money out there for. So there's a lot of different things that are moving around and moving parts and other items that can cause a lot of stress. And sometimes that stress may make a parent think of trying to do something that may be a little nefarious, maybe a little outside of the law, might be something that may be frowned upon in other circles. But as a parent, I know that feeling of wanting to make sure that you give your child every advantage that you possibly can to make sure that your children are successful, because that is our role as parents. But I'm sure some of you have been at that point where you have had a decision to do something that may be frowned upon, might be illegal. I don't want you to mention anything that's illegal, but folks, if you have gone through something where, I don't care if it's at the elementary level or at the high school level or at the college level, if you've gone through something to get your child into a school that you don't think other family members have gone through or other people that you know have gone through, I encourage you to jump down into the comment box and tell me a little bit about one of those things that you've experienced in your personal life. That could be a barrier to entering into elementary school, high school, or college, or it could be some extra step that you took to make sure that your kids had even footing or an advantage. And of course, this spawns into a question of this common phrase you may have heard, and it's been bandied about on the internet, and that phrase is equality of outcome or equality of opportunity. Now, of course, when we're talking about equality of opportunity, that would be that we are making the playing ground level so that each person, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background is or what you do, there is an equal opportunity for everyone to either get into that school or meet whatever that criteria is. Now, common item that's been bandied out as the opposite of this would be equality of outcome. Now, equality of outcome is a different animal amongst itself. Now, a lot of people will say, hey, look, I want to make sure that if I did this, this, and this, and if this person does this, this, and this, then no matter what, we should have an equal outcome. And that same concept can be applied to work. That same concept could be applied to a lot of different things in the regular world. So I want you to try to think of some of those things that it could be applied to in the regular world, and think of any examples that you may have seen people pushing for equality of outcome rather than equality of opportunity. So in any of these items, if you have felt or you have an opinion on either one of these sides, maybe the equality of outcome or the equality of opportunity, I'd like to know what your opinion is on either one of those items, on which you think is more important or which one you value, because many times when we're talking about affirmative action in college recruiting or any of these programs that are kind of built to make sure that lots of different diversity is encapsulated in these universities or on the campuses, some people believe that the affirmative action or other programs to promote diversity are trying to guarantee equality of outcome. Now, of course, the people who put some of these things in place think that it is a quality of opportunity. And I'm eager to find out what you think. Dan says, I think college has lost its luster with a lot of young people and in general sense is failing students. I think it's not too beneficial unless you're a specialized major, i.e. nursing, psychology, law, etc. Trade schools, let's see, oh, we're losing it because somebody else has put in a comment. Trade schools have been forced to take a backseat to college and it hurts the workforce. Dan, I think you make some really, really, really great points there, especially in today's world where there's so much access to education, and that access to education doesn't have to come from the traditional sense of a college. You have lots of different points of interest on the internet that can help you get those valuable skills that you would only get, or that experience you would only get on a college campus before. Now, one of the things why I think I push back a little bit is if we're looking at an economy and we're talking about people who are going towards college because that college is that one thing that we always say will be that great equalizer in the economy. If you get enough education, it kind of buys into that American dream of you can do whatever you want if you do this, this, and this. It's kind of like that checklist. Get the college, get the job, get the house, get the white picket fence, get the good old Goodyear swing in the front yard. And for a long time, that kind of bought into the American dream of if you work hard enough, i.e. work, real work, or education, you can achieve that American dream. But for so many college students out there, we see a lot of people who are spending vast amounts of money on and I don't want to offend anybody, but junior level colleges or colleges that aren't quite meeting the Ivy League level, but are at the same price point as Ivy League schools just 5 to 10 years back. And what we're running into is people who have massive amounts of college debt, which, of course, everyone says you need the education to get the job, but you have massive amounts of college debt. And then people who are moving into the workforce that can't get jobs that actually pay a living wage to be able to actually afford to live and pay back those college loans. So it kind of takes everybody to this idea of capitalism as wage slavery. Because you have these folks that are literally, they say they're listening to everything that's out there in the zeitgeist and the popular opinion that college is that only way to go, which leads back to this overall topic of what you would do for your children and the college admission scam. But there's this idea that this is the way to go, and when you juxtapose that with the debt that you get and the little outcome for a better future, it seems like college is a bad idea. However, in the same light, you have an economy that is specifically geared around you having a certain level of prerequisite skill that you get from college so that we can then have something to form the basis of a merit system within any organization. Now, as the world starts to evolve a bit more in the college realm of making sure that college equates to real world jobs, kind of like we brought up about trade schools, you'll start to notice that trade schools and learning a trade independently has become a huge turning point. But rather than it be vocational technical schools that are offering it at the elementary or the high school level, or even at the collegiate level, you're finding a lot more that there are private companies that are offering a bunch of these skills, or the colleges are taking the vocational technical things that you could have received during high school and making it part of community college class offerings. So it basically takes something that used to be something that was when the high school is non-paid and prepping people for work, real-time work. Now that item is removed or greatly diminished, given to the realm of colleges so that the colleges can then monetize it. So it can be really tough. Denise says, my kids were only going to a 4-year college and a full scholarship. Tech school is much more needed. Yeah, and it goes to that idea of having a trade or something that is a valuable skill no matter what occupation you might go into. So, of course, if you had for example, if you were a notary public, you could literally work in some other job that you enjoyed, and that could be your side hustle, or that could be that major item. But the point is, it's a skill that doesn't get diminished by any other item that's out there. It's just something that you can add on to and say, hey, I've got this in my background too. And then perhaps maybe there'll be an evolution, evolution where colleges get back to more of a model where it is about teaching and training. Now, I have to, of course, remind everybody that right now we're looking at education like it is the great deliverer of all things, and in a lot of years it has been. Hey, Latrice, it has been. And now, of course, there's that changing dynamic there, but I want to remind everybody that a lot of the school programs that we see today and the just plain going to school is kind of made out of a necessity to have some place to house children while people were at work. And of course, goes back to that concept of wage slavery. And I'd like you guys, if you want some extra reading to do, there's some really good books out there on the topic of wage slavery and that connection to capitalism. And it kind of relates to one of those previous conversations that we were having about universal basic income. So again, folks, the topic that we are talking about is having children, what you would do for them, the value of education in light of the college admission scandal, because it's looking like 2 of the famous actresses that are attached and perhaps one of their spouses will be spending at least at very minimum 1 year in jail. And that is huge. Now, of course, there's everybody who says, I don't know why they would go through this scandal when you can literally go to a college, buy a wing of that college, and your kids will get on in. Or if you were a legacy, your kids would have a better opportunity to go to that school. I happen to have been a USC grad. I also went to University of Phoenix, rising like a phoenix from the ashes. And, of course, that means that my son here would have the ability to have a legacy recruitment to come on in. And young Lincoln here is very sick today. Oh, my baby. Now, of course, as someone who went to the school, I look at it and I say, of course I want my kid to go to the same school I did. And I went there, so great, yeah, I want him to go there. But is that taking away those valuable spots from people who may have haven't had an opportunity like I have, and may need that opportunity a little bit more? And that, of course, goes back to that question of quality of outcome or equality of opportunity. Now, Denise says they have vocational schools, but they are not part of a regular high school curriculum. My kids are in a vocational program, but it's totally separate from school, and they spend half the day there. And she also says, and then goes back to school. And that's exactly what I was talking about, where you take the opportunity that used to be available, readily available, that could really get people ready for actual practical skills that they could use immediately, and you take it out of that realm of public education and you put it into a place where it can be monetized. And I think we may be seeing the monetization of education continuing. Now, Michelle Youngblood Jaman says, as an educator, I have changed my dialogue to be post-secondary education instead of college. Yes, I love the linguistic specificity that you use there. That is right. We should be talking about post-secondary education and just continuing education or lifelong education. It started with the availability of having the opportunity to be able to gather information from the internet or from various places from all over the world that gives and supports and pushes further knowledge is great. It's an awesome thing. The internet has become a great equalizer of sharing information. But I will tell you that when we start talking about education, and when you start talking about secondary education, you will start to find out that some of the things that are being proposed as far as regulating the internet and being able to place restrictions on certain internets while lowering speeds at other areas, it's gotten to this concept that Ms. Youngblood, as an educator, may be able to talk about in more depth as well. But you'll start to notice that a lot of the colleges and a lot of the universities, especially the Ivy League universities, have started to buy the patents to a lot of educational material that's out there. Those items that they patent then go behind a paywall within their libraries, or a lot of those things where you would think would be common knowledge that would be out there for everyone to see aren't those common knowledge items anymore. They soon become things that are stuck behind organizations' paywalls, like, what's a good one? EBSCO, EBSCO. Think of any of the other educators that are out there who have access to a university-based library will know exactly what I mean whenever I say that a lot of the educational items or the great works that are out there are now behind paywalls. So whereas the internet is opening up vast amounts of knowledge, a lot of the knowledge that's being put out on the internet aren't these scholarly items. These aren't these items that have been peer-reviewed. Those peer-reviewed items and those items that would help to add a real layer of education, or add a, hey Kevin, how are you? Eric, how are you? Always good to see some good friends. Folks, especially those friends, throw a comment in there. Give me something else to talk about. Let's make sure that we have good things to talk about during the week, and always good to see you. Again, I will encourage anybody who wants to jump on in so we can have some one-on-one conversation, and for the benefit of everybody else, let me know. Let's talk about those things. Mr. Eichler, I will tell you that you and I need to have an on-air conversation about your transition out of the military, because that would really help a lot of the other veterans that are out there. That could be something that you and I bring to the table, and it could really help a lot of vets who are making that transition just like you. So we can talk about some of those other things. Again, the topic that we were talking about today is a higher education, or post-secondary education, or just simply lifelong learning. Then this conversation sprung from the beginning topic that we had, which was the college admission scams and what you would do for your children. Now, we have done a lot of talking so far about what we would do for our children, but I haven't had any comments down here about what you guys have actually done for your children that either, again, something that would be maybe a little questionable, or just the extra steps that you had to take to make sure that your kids are successful. We had Denise bring up, hey Jamie, how are you? We had, hey Nelson. We had Denise bring up the fact that not only do her kids go to college prep outside, it's kind of like a vocational, that her kids are on scholarships. So I'm sure it took a lot of effort and a lot of skill to navigate the system and make sure that the kids got that wonderful scholarship, but also that they are being supported to be able to receive that education. So if there's anybody out there who has taken some extra steps to make sure that their kids have that equality of opportunity or equality of outcome, let me know. Put it in the comments. Dan says, I just think the risk to reward from college for a lot of general studies or business degrees is a bad way for an 18-year-old to start their adult life in debt, and will generally never earn enough experience, so they're stuck in that gray area. That's right. It feels like a trap. I will give a personal experience since I just mentioned University of Phoenix. Now, folks, again, no disrespect to University of Phoenix whatsoever. I'm a University of Phoenix grad myself, okay? But I will tell you that, just like Dan said here, when we're talking about business schools, and there's something I didn't realize about business schools when I went to go get my MBA. Now, I will tell you, I started with University of Phoenix working towards my MBA after I had first gained a bachelor's from a different university. And one thing that they don't really tell you is that B schools, meaning business schools, If it's not an Ivy League business school, which are the business schools that they are usually reporting or pulling from, for McKinsey, for Oracle, McKesson, all these big companies that literally that are ravaged and hungry for business professionals, MBAs, PMPs, people who have their project management who's a project management professional certification. They're looking for these people from those Ivy League schools, and then if they don't find them from those Ivy League schools, they look down at the next tier of the B schools, and then the next tier. If you're simply looking for to be able to say, hey, I earned an MBA, which at the time I thought that's all I really needed to do, is be able to say, hey, I got it. Because you know what they say a degree is a degree is a degree. At least that's what they were saying when I was growing up. But then you get out and you find out that a lot of these items aren't just based on that degree and what that degree may be able to confer for you. You find out that a lot of it really is about the perception of that education. Now, I went to USC, I went to Central Texas College, I went to Cal State Monterey Bay. I'm 6 classes from finishing another executive MBA from Cal State Monterey Bay. Got an MBA from University of Phoenix, a master's in social work from USC. And going to all those different schools really made me understand that most of the education that I was receiving was about the same. It really does depend on what you're putting into it and, of course, what you gain out of it. But the one thing that didn't change throughout all those things is the reputation of the school. It really, really matters about those things. And remember, folks, we can pretend all day that perception doesn't matter and perception isn't reality, but I will tell you, from my time in the military and every business I have worked in and just plain old regular life, I will tell you that perception is not 90% of reality. Even if reality says, no, this isn't it, people go with what they can see, Joe. Dan also says, I'll definitely talk about my transition out of the military. I think it's a very important topic for my fellow military members thinking of separating or recently separating and what's available. Bravo, 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 bravo. There's a lot of our military, and just to kind of skew off the topic, because it's still on education, because that's one of those first things that a lot of military members do when they transition out. They try to look for additional education or find something that will help them make that transition into the civilian world. There are a lot of really cool programs that are out there that I'd love to talk with Dan up. We're going to set up a time that me and Dan can talk, and then we'll send this out to all of my fellow military members that are out there, all my Marines, all my Navy, Airmen, soldiers, everybody, Coast Guard. We'll even put the Air Force in there. Just kidding. We love the Air Force. We love the Air Force. No, but really, there are some really great things, really great programs, especially vocational rehabilitation, credentialing opportunities for military members, the military federal opportunities for you to move directly into the federal workforce, Schedule A hiring. There's a lot of great things out there, and especially if you are going to be utilizing your education benefits. There's some things that you want to put into place in specific order so that you can maximize those benefits. But Dan and I will talk about that item here in a little bit. I was looking to see if anybody else had shared a little bit of their experience. Michelle Youngblood Javon says, you can't appreciate what you haven't earned. You can't appreciate what you haven't earned. I like that phrase. It's a pretty strong phrase that she put there. I think that when we're talking about this topic of education, we as parents are going to want to do everything that we possibly can for our children to be successful. And I think the takeaway that we'll give away for today will be, even when you're in that pursuit to make sure that your child is successful, make sure that you remember that there are other children that are out there too. And their mothers and fathers feel just that they are just as valuable as your child is too. And remember that those children that you raise, no matter what you do, those actions that you take, they're most likely watching those actions. And they're most likely going to take those same actions too. Now, I love to be able to say that I will do anything and everything for my kids, and I would pretty much say I would do pretty much anything and everything for my kids. But I will ask each and every one of us to take a step back, take a moment out, and think about all the other people that are out here in this world. And I know that it is easier for us to say, F the other people, we don't need these other big people, it's just me against the world. But we all have to live here. We all have to get along. And support, friendship, and shared values may go a little further than all of those extra steps that we are taking to give our children more of an advantage than other people. So perhaps, again, the takeaway would be, let's not look for advantage. Let's look for equal opportunity. Have a great night, folks. I truly appreciate you watching. Keep putting those topics out there. Keep talking to me. We're looking for more volunteers, and of course, be looking for that Andrew Yang challenge, $1,000 in the American Dream viral video challenge that I'm going to be putting out on Friday of this week. All right, and again, no political endorsements here. The opinions that I've shared are mine and mine alone. They don't represent my organization. They don't represent the government. They don't represent anybody but me. Folks, I appreciate you watching. I love you. Have a great day.